so patient, I'm going places, can't fake it. My heart is so cold, my energy is contagious. All the pain, I can't take it. I'm staying grounded and graceful, cause I know everything that I've been through only made me count my blessings daily. Yeah, they've been acting shady, but I don't take it personal. The memories fading, I'm enjoying the moment. I've been smelling the roses, taking time to reflect, stepping back, the truth unfolding, unfolding. Got nothing to prove, cause I'm about to blow. I've been in the booth, speaking through my soul. You know that I'm true, either way it go, either way it goes. I cannot turn cold, staying on the low. I've been protecting my soul. If your intentions are not pure, I can't let you get too close, cause I'm vibrating high. Ain't got time for your ego, these niggas quit to turn their back. Acting like the amigos, they never cared in the shows. Wasn't with you at your lows, assuming that you gonna fold. But baby, I've been growing ever since I let you go. And I've been doing better, and I know that hurts to know. Hurts to know. Only good vibes around me, and that's for sure. Only good vibes, good vibes. Good vibes, good vibes. Only need good vibes, good vibes. Good vibes, good vibes. Only need good vibes. Can't lie. Only need good vibes, good vibes. Good vibes, good vibes. You see me searching for my inner peace. I've been learning more about myself and my purpose. Truth always comes
everybody. All right, hey everybody, welcome in. Hey, happy Wednesday. Welcome in everybody. Wow, I'm just seeing everyone in the chat. It's good to see everyone. Today's Wednesday, January 21st when we're doing this live. So welcome in. If you're on the replay, hey, do me a favor, hit that like, leave some comments as we go along. I think you'll find tonight's show interesting and highly concerning. I see everyone's getting weather out there, especially towards the east of the Rockies. We send our best wishes for you. I want to say hello to everyone in the chat. What's up, Daisy? Daisy Asks, also known as Amy G. Quadaxel Mimi. Hey, Quad. Snoop Sleuth is in here. What's up, Snoop Sleuth? Deb. Good to see everybody. Look, Deb is our main mod here, okay? Everyone, please respect Deb. She says, please hit the link tree for support pathways, okay? So I'm gonna let everyone know that we got our link tree happening. If you need to get in touch with me or anything like that, also our support pathways are scrolling down below. Heavy Metal Rehab, how you doing? Okay, good to see you. David Rogers, hello. Christopher, 88A, good to see you. Let's see who else is in here. Fort Pitbulls Across America, Ninja Warrior Assassin, Dennis McKean. Hey, what up, Dennis? Seriously, good to see you guys. Who else is in here? Paula Fitzhenry. What's up, Paula? Okay, we got a full house tonight. Good to see everybody. Please share this right now. Okay, if you're watching live, share it right now. Get everyone in here. This is an important message for the world to hear, okay? It's a very important message, and we're spreading the truth out here. So we need people in here to hear this message. It's very important. Please hit the like on the way in, share as we go along so that everyone else can be hip to what we're going to discuss, which is the obstruction of justice and conspiracy to fix the trial of Richard Allen. Okay, and I'll tell you guys in a moment what we'll be getting into. What's up, Nicole Watt? Okay, Goddess is here. Hey, Goddess. Who else we got in here I haven't said hello to yet? All right. I'm looking. Critter Mama, what's up, Critter Mama? All right. Everybody's looking good. Mercedes Gillen, what's up? Dieter, what's up, Dieter? David Rogers, I said hello already. Okay, who else am I missing? Becky B33. 26 Dead Zombies, dude. Good to see you. Digital, good to see everyone. Good to see you. We got Christina. Hey, what's up, Christina? All right. It's a new day. Hey, what's up? It's a new day. I got your email, so I haven't emailed you back. Lord Customs. What's up, Lord Customs? Yeah, it looks like we got everyone in here. I'm so glad to see everyone. Like I said, get all your friends in here. Okay, and Indiana residents especially. What's up, Swade Smith? Swade Smith came in saying hello to everyone. Awesome. Becca Ann, what's up? Okay, yeah. So get all these Indiana residents in here. They need to hear this. If you're new to Delphi, you need to hear this too. Okay. tonight's show is very important because we have a lot of concerns, okay, about Delphi. What's up, Ginger Spice 2? Thank you for the super sticker. Thank you very much. Um, so tonight, we're going to be focusing on the most concerning part of the trial of Richard Allen. Okay, we're going to be looking back. We're going to be trying to contextualize what happened here in the Delphi murders. Now, listen, if you're new to the Delphi murders, you might not really have a good handle on what's going on here. So, this is the point of our show tonight. We're trying to orient people as they come into this topic and really show to them what we all already know to be true. And many of us here in the channel have experienced it in real time. But I'm particularly interested in people who are new and coming into the community to sort of give them a point of orientation. And so that's the point here, okay, tonight. So what we're going to be looking at is a component of the appellate brief in the trial of Richard Allen as Richard Allen pursues an appeal. And we're going to do a little something unconventional, which is we're taking it backwards, okay? We're going to go in reverse order of priority as laid out by the appellate attorneys. And so we're going to get into that. You know, don't worry about it. You'll understand once we get there. But basically what I'm saying to you is that we're going to look at perhaps the most concerning part of this, which is the what I would call the unethical conduct of the judge, okay, in particular, which I call the conspiracy to fix the trial of Richard Allen. Now, the problem here, it's not just about the judge, because what you need to understand is this is a whole structure. Okay, this is a whole architecture that came together to railroad Richard Allen for the murders of Abby and Libby in Delphi, Indiana in 2017. In my opinion, in order to bury the very thing that led to their murders, which was being catfished by some predators on the internet who we, under an umbrella term, Anthony Schatz. The concerning thing here is it's not very clear what Anthony Schatz means, who Anthony Schatz is. There's the appearance that Anthony Schatz is representative of a number of individuals, and in particular to what is assumed to be a network of child traffickers operating out of the state of Indiana. Okay. And it's our hypothesis that this network of child traffickers attempted to abduct one of the victims, a Liberty German, over in Delphi in 2017. And in the process of the abduction, ended up murdering her and her friend over on Ron Logan's property, okay, in Delphi. Now, the speculation here is that the predators that were operating through this child trafficking network operated in a way whereby they catfished and lured out potential victims to vulnerable locations. And when they would have that victim hook, line, and sinker on the hook to go out and intersect at that particular vulnerable location, that a number of individuals who were the parties to facilitating the trafficking of these children would then gather and go and grab the child and then utilize them for sexual exploitation and then transport out of the state. Okay, so in my opinion, what we had here is an incident wherein the victim showed up unexpectedly with a friend or two or three. Okay, and as this all transpired, the abduction went wrong. And when the abduction went wrong, violence occurred such that one or both of the victims were seriously injured, such to the extent that the only decision in these abductors' minds were to dispatch with both of the victims. So thereby, you end up with two murder victims who were then moved multiple times, posed and staged at a crime scene to be discovered later. Okay. And it's my opinion that the entire point of this cover up of this incident is because this child trafficking network that has probably been doing this for years and has already had multiple victims risks exposing all of the customers of this trafficking, which would naturally be high powered individuals, judges, lawyers, doctors, politicians, and the like. So, this is my underlying theory of what we're looking at, and the underlying theory as to the reason for the monumental size of a cover up, and the reason that many individuals would be engaged in following through or exercising this cover up in order to ensure that the door never opens into the truth of this world. Because should it open, it's not only the particular abductors and killers who go down for this crime, but it potentially opens the door into a whole bunch of powerful individuals ending up being exposed and imprisoned. And so that's the theory over here with the Delphi murders. And it's my opinion that this is why we have seen such a, or should I say, an obvious cover up that was pulled off out in public view. Okay, just in front of the public, blatantly and brazenly, as if they felt emboldened to do it. In the public eye. Now, along those lines, it's important to say that I think what you would have is not just certain law enforcement officers or certain judicial officers or certain politicians and the like who would be in on this, but it would require a massive undertaking. In other words, you would have to engage the services of CIs who were obligated to assist you in certain aspects. You would have to engage PR minded individuals. You would have to engage a number of attorneys who are perfectly positioned. You would have to engage an entire contingent of individuals to pull off something of this magnitude. And when we look at this, we try to figure who and how could this be pulled off, and it would require organization. You know, and if you ever look into RICO cases that are brought, the thing about RICO cases they are always brought after the fact, meaning that the criminal organization or the organizational structure exist out of mutual benefit among all parties prior to the crimes being committed. And I think that's exactly what we're looking at. We are looking at a situation in which you have a pre-established structure or network or cooperative of individuals who are all mutually benefited and work together in order to accomplish a similar goal. And if this is what started in 2017 and we've seen play out over these years, there should be elements that reveal themselves. Okay. And I believe there are. And I think that the final move here was the trial of Richard Allen. And I believe that this was never an intention, okay, of this network. I think the intention was to force a plea deal. And we'll be getting into that in the future because I'm absolutely certain, okay. The the concept of bringing this to trial was never really well thought out or considered because it was never intended to go to trial. This was an attempt to coerce an individual into a plea deal such that this would never go to trial, discovery would never have to be given up, and public scrutiny would never be heightened as it has. And so, because of the failed attempt to coerce him into a plea deal, this group was forced to bring this to trial. And there's a lot of context to it. For instance, people often speculate as to why he was arrested when he was arrested. And often politics are brought into it as if something like an election would be worth ruining one's life, grabbing some guy in the community just to win an election. And I say, no, no, no. You have to put your thinking caps on, okay? You have to put your thinking caps on. There's no way that a small town sheriff like this would go to the extent of attempting to pull this off just to win an ordinary election in an election cycle. No way. This was all about maintaining control of the cover up. Because remember, this is a cover up going back to 2017. So when you fast forward to 2022, and you're looking at a group of individuals who, since 2017, had been engaging in this cover up or this scheme to hide the reality of this targeting attempt at this victim and what it might mean for all the other individuals on up the chain. I think what this was actually about was maintaining control of the cover up, or as I put in quotation marks, the investigation, because there's no way that they could allow any independent or third party who is not party to this cover up or this scheme to come on in and turn things inside out and actually discover the truth of the matter. And so I believe that in 2022, a plan was unfolded, and that plan was solely intended to keep the same players in power and in control of this investigation, quote unquote, or cover up. And so this is far beyond mundane politics. This is about the cover up of the unimaginable. I often equate it to an Epstein level cover up, and I think it's of a similar nature. It's probably a subset. And so what we saw was that in the years leading up to 2022, a lot of individuals were pre-positioned in the years 2019 to 2022. A lot of individuals were pre-positioned for this very exact thing. Okay, so that when Richard Allen was arrested, you had a entire setup established, people positioned, pre-positioned to roll out an entire scenario in which the prosecution of Richard Allen would ensue, and the distraction from the trafficking network would be accomplished. And so when you look at the trial of Richard Allen in this broader context, it actually starts to come into focus as to what we're actually looking at. And so I think it's to be expected that you would have to have a judge and a courtroom and attorneys and prosecutors all in place to facilitate this endeavor. And I think that's exactly what we've seen. And when I use the word obstruction, I don't use it lightly, because you would have to understand, what would obstruction mean? Would it mean obstruction of public access, obstruction of uh, pure due process, meaning an actual jury who was selected independently and diligently, such that they are representative of the community and not leaning any way or the other, totally untampered or uh, unbiased? Or would it mean complete obstruction of public access, of public scrutiny, of truly unbiased jurors, of a truly unbiased judge, and a truly unbiased prosecutor, and truly unbiased law enforcement officers, and the like? And I think when you're looking at my title and conceiving of the term of obstruction, understand what I'm saying is this entire thing was an obstruction. And that's going to lead us into where I'm getting at, because I've been watching this community clearly enough or closely enough to be able to see the things that were playing out. Okay. And the funniest thing is that there was an entire effort underway into the lead up of trial to facilitate this effort to coerce a plea deal. There was an entire effort underway to steer the public narrative, or should I say, influence the potential future jurors. And that's very clear. That was the absolute goal of the troll farm, who I often talk about. And I'll get into that momentarily too. And we'll go through some things. But so I guess kind of in this conversation tonight, what I'm doing is I'm sort of spiraling into the center point of the focus, because it's very difficult to wrap one's head around. And so I'm going to try to show you a panorama of examples of this before we get into the heart of the matter. And so I think the best way to do that is to bring to your attention the news of the day, because I'm sure everyone's all abuzz about it, especially behind the scenes and in the chat and out in the community. And hey, that's where we're going to start off. So let me bring this up. I want to show you the most appalling news of the day, because we are all aware that just in the past 48 hours, it was announced that the judge on this trial of Richard Allen, and that is one Frances Gull, announced that she would be retiring at the end of the year, which likely means that she would not be in a position to run the full course of a retrial for Richard Allen, which is very likely to be granted, because as we've taken a look at this, the appellate briefing in and of itself is so compelling that it looks like it's a very high percentage of likelihood, or a very high likelihood, that it would be to the benefit of the state of Indiana and the judicial system of Indiana, just for purely public optics, to grant a retrial. And so with that being said, it was just astonishing today to see this news here. And this news is that Christina Gull seeks to replace mother Fran Gull as Allen County judge. Now, this is absolutely just mind-boggling, because you can see that it's almost beyond belief what these people are trying to do. Okay, now if you think Frances Gull announces her retirement, and less than 24 hours later, you get her daughter announcing that she fully intends to seek her mother's seat, which then might set her up to have the reins in a retrial of Richard Allen. Okay? So I think that just like everything with these people, they do everything out in the open, everything extremely brazenly, and they do everything in your face to flex the power that they know they hold. Okay? Now, if you think that this will be a fair election, I got news for you. The fix is in. Okay? The fact that she's announcing she is running means that she is going to fill that seat. There's no intention to have a fair election. What is a fair election in this day and age? Especially locally, where the likelihood of fixing is that much more likely or possible. So this is just a point. You know, we're putting a pin in this. And like I said, we're going in a spiral. We're sort of spiraling around in towards our center focus here. And honestly, I've thought about this show for about 24 hours and how to go through a sequential order of all this stuff we're going to look at. And there's no good way, because this whole thing is it's disorienting, and it's not necessarily played out sequentially. So it doesn't really matter what came first, what came last, what's most recent, which is most old, because we're looking at a panoramic view. But let's continue, because I want to show some more things. Because we're talking about obstruction of justice here in the railroading and fixing of the trial of Richard Allen, including the fixing of the jury, the fixing of the social media commentary, and the fixing of public perception, the fixing of the prosecutor's office, and the fixing of everything. Okay, it's no different. I mean, what do you think the destruction of 70 days of videotaped evidence was in the Delphi murders investigation? Do you not think that the destruction of 70 days of video, including the destruction of the marathon footage and all of the other destruction, do you not think that that's obstruction? So I want to read a couple things, because speaking of obstruction, I think that the most egregious thing that happened in the lead up to the Delphi murders trial of Richard Allen was the disallowance of cameras in the courtroom. Because realize that transparency is not their friend, and therefore it is their enemy. So one of the first indicators that we were in for an absolute bulldozing, okay, was the disallowance of any camera in the courtroom, especially a pool camera or anything that could be innocuous and not hurt anybody. So I want to get some insight from the public here for you guys. For instance, this is a letter dated Wednesday, April 17, 2024. Subject line, restoring faith, cameras in the courtroom. It says, Dear Honorable Judge Gall, I am writing you as a law-abiding, tax-paying American citizen. I am also writing you as a fellow Hoosier. I believe the United States of America is the best country on this earth. While our justice system may have its flaws, I believe it is still the best judicial system currently offered on our planet. As a veteran, I have truly been disheartened watching what has transpired in the case of Richard Allen. It pains me to see citizens of the country I love lose faith in that very country. It pains me to see citizens of the country I love lose faith in our justice system. It pains me to watch citizens lose faith in law enforcement. Clearly, there are many opinions in this case. A case of this magnitude has the capability to instill confidence in our justice system and our police. A case of this magnitude also has the capability to place serious cracks in the beliefs that some have in our justice system and our police. I am asking you to please reconsider your current stance on cameras in the courtroom. Pulling back the curtains, allowing the sun to shine in, and showing our state, our country, and the world that the American justice system does not believe in conducting business in the darkness is the only way to turn this ship around, in my opinion. Thank you for your time. God bless. And now we're going to hear from another community member. Your Honor, as a fellow Hoosier and former Carroll County resident, I write to you today asking that your decision on cameras in the courtroom in the Richard Allen trial be reconsidered. As a former law student, I have always believed and enjoyed our justice system and the process. This particular case hits rather close to home as a former resident of the area. Despite all of the media coverage and the documentaries produced, it is difficult for people to truly understand the way of life in Carroll County, especially before this horrible crime. I have personally spent many hours attempting to explain to people that at least as far back as 2014, when I was there, letting your teenage child go out on the trails alone was common practice and not neglect, as many wanted to believe at the time. We left our doors unlocked and our keys sitting in our vehicles. That is likely no longer the case, and that in and of itself is sad. Cameras will show transparency in this case, something that has been lacking in abundance, despite the fact that this case has turned into a toxic community, particularly online. There are many, like myself, who believe the trial is where the facts will be presented. We live in a country where someone is considered innocent until proven guilty. But you and I both know this is often not the case in high-profile cases such as this one. No matter the outcome of this trial, the lack of cameras and transparency will do nothing to fix that. However, showing in essence the world, the true and factual evidence will alleviate most, although I'm not sure all, of the toxins in this case. In addition, the lack of cameras and transparency can do nothing but cause harm. This harm will include, but not be limited to, the safety of players of this trial, the state of Indiana, Carroll County, and the justice system as a whole. I am sure you are well aware Delphi is a small town that is wholly unprepared and lacks the resources to control the amount of media and general citizens from around the country that will soon befall them. There are no hotels. There's a huge lack of simple parking in the area. The jury and participants who will attend the trial will likely be staying in Monticello, Logansport, or Lafayette. Business in Delphi or Carroll County may get a small bit of revenue during court breaks, but the vast majority of people will likely wait until they return to where they are staying, where the choices of dining and shopping will be vastly different with many more options. Without cameras and with the abundance of people, more security will be needed, which will once again cost the state, county, and the taxpayers much more money with little in return. While not always optional, several trials across the country have opted in different ways to stream trials. In the Letitia Stotch trial in Colorado, there was one stationary camera that prevented the jury and witnesses from being seen on camera. Yes, it's possible, ladies and gentlemen. In the Chad Daybell trial, currently being held in Idaho, the judge is using a Zoom program. In the Lori Vallow Daybell case, also in Idaho, one of the parties did not want cameras, so it was audio recorded and released to the public at the end of the day. I ask you to reconsider or to consider these and other options available for the Richard Allen trial. The public will personally hear the facts, and while again, I will not pretend it will prevent all inaccuracies given to the media, it will vastly reduce them. It will also lessen the amount of people and chaos that will come to the area and harm the proceedings. With cameras, any inaccuracies can be easily disputed and dispelled. Thank you for your time and hope that you agree that cameras in this case will be more likely than not help the case, the parties, and the justice system. And now I'm going to continue. February 15th, 2023. This is a press release from the Indiana Judicial Branch. I'm going to read it. Judges may allow press to have cameras in trial courts for immediate release. Beginning on May 1st, 2023, judicial officers around the state will have the authority to allow news media into their courtrooms to record, photograph, and broadcast court proceedings that are not confidential. Rule 2.17 of the Code of Judicial Conduct has long prohibited broadcasting, recording, or taking photographs of court proceedings in areas adjacent to courtrooms without prior approval by the Indiana Supreme Court. An order amending Rule 2.17, effective May 1st, 2023, gives the discretion to allow cameras to the local judges. This is the culmination of years of work and pilot projects with discussion and evaluation, said Chief Justice Loretta H. Rush. Trial court judges are in the best position to determine how to balance the importance of transparency while protecting the rights of people involved in a court matter. This change follows a 4-month pilot program, a public comment period, and careful evaluation by the Indiana Supreme Court. Long-time work by the Indiana Judicial Conference, Community Relations Committee, and Court Security Committee, along with the Hoosier State Press Association and the Indiana Broadcasters Association, led to the most recent pilot project. The judges who opened their courtrooms during the pilot, Judges Fran Gull. That's right. Judges Fran Gull.
Oh my God.
Marianne Voorhees, Bruce Parent, Sean Pearson, and Leslie Shively provided essential feedback. Under the new rule, cameras are still prohibited in court unless authorized by the judge. Commentary included with the rule provides further conditions. For example, certain people, including minors and jurors, may not be shown on camera. Only news media as defined in Indiana Code 344641 may be authorized, and the judge may revoke authorization at any time for any reason. March 24, 2022, broadcast pilot project allows cameras in court by Jennifer Bauer, staff attorney, Office of Court Services. On December 1st, 2021, the Supreme Court launched a broadcast pilot program project in 5 Indiana trial courts. The 4-month pilot authorizes new media to broadcast court proceedings in Allen Superior Court, Delaware Circuit Court, Lake Superior Court, Tippecanoe Circuit Court, and Vanderburgh Superior Court. The pilot project is designed to promote transparency by showing Hoosiers the court process. And here are some examples of what it would look like. The Code of Judicial Conduct currently prohibits broadcasting, recording, or taking photographs of court proceedings and adjacent areas of the courtrooms, but the Supreme Court granted an exception at the request of 2 judicial conference committees, Community Relations and Court Security. The committees selected judges based on court jurisdiction, location, and judicial interest in the pilot project. Judges Fran Gull, Marianne Voorhees, Bruce Parent, Sean Person, and Leslie Shively answered the call to open their courtrooms to the local news media. The judges worked closely with press to address logistical and decorum needs. Once the hearings start, everyone seems to forget news media is present. The Supreme Court's pilot project order makes all civil and criminal proceedings eligible for broadcast coverage by the news media. Rebroadcast of live stream court hearings are also permitted. Proceedings closed to the public by state statute or court rules are not included in the pilot. The order prohibits media coverage of jurors, minors, victims of sex offenses, juvenile matters, mental health commitments, and protection order hearings. No broadcast of a court proceeding is allowed without authorization from the judge. The Supreme Court has conducted previous camera pilots, but this pilot gives judges wide discretion to allow cameras. Past pilots have included provisions that allowed one side or the other to deny the cameras. This pilot does not include that right of refusal. Also, in contrast with previous pilots, broadcast equipment is now smaller and quieter than ever, allowing journalists to use cameras and smartphones the size of a deck of cards to record and photograph. Media stories are now filled from anywhere or filed from anywhere with the click of a button, allowing reporters to live stream and upload video recordings without a trip back to the newsroom. At the halfway point of the pilot, media interest in recording court proceedings had been focused on criminal cases and was limited. Student journalists at Purdue University's The Exponent were the first to request and receive permission to record a court proceeding in Judge Person's Lafayette courtroom. Media outlets participating in the pilot study included WPTA-TV, Wayne TV, and Fox 55 TV in Fort Wayne. The Purdue's The Exponent and the Journal and Courier newspapers in Lafayette. The late January, student journalists at Ball State University began filming hearings in Delaware Circuit Court to produce a documentary on the judicial process. Journalists have recorded and photographed 36 initial hearings, pretrial conferences, and sentencing hearings. And looky here, we have a quotation. The media has been patient with delays in the hearings and has been unobtrusive and accommodating of the sheriff's security concerns regarding camera placement. Judge Fran Gull, Allen County.
Oh my God!
According to Judge Person, once the hearings start, everyone seems to forget the news media is present. Reporters continually seek guidance and understand the need to remain inconspicuous during the court proceedings. Judge Gull agreed and added, the media has been patient with delays in the hearings and for the most part has been unobtrusive and accommodating of the sheriff's security concerns regarding camera placement. They have been professional in their coverage and presence.
Bruh.
When the pilot concludes, the committees plan to evaluate the project with the help from the Hoosier State Press Association and the Indiana Broadcasters Association. Both organizations are longtime champions of cameras in court. Committee members and media representatives will review survey responses from the participating judges, attorneys, and journalists. The group will also examine audio, video, and still photographs taken by journalists, as well as television and print stories produced by media outlets. As directed by the pilot order, the group will report its evaluation and the recommendations to the Supreme Court. October 17th, 2023, judge issues order to allow cameras in Allen County courtroom for Delphi murders hearing. Fort Wayne. For the first time in the case of Richard Allen, cameras will be allowed in the courtroom for a Thursday hearing in the Delphi double murder case. The special judge appointed in this case, Judge Fran Gull of Allen County, issued an order on Tuesday to allow full media coverage of Richard Allen's upcoming hearing on Thursday, October 19th. What do you think the reason for that was? Allen was arrested on October 28th, 2022 on 2 charges of murder in the 2017 killings of Liberty German, 14, and Abigail Williams, 13. The 2 girls went missing while hiking on February 13, 2017, before their bodies were found the next day. Allen was arrested. The case has generated substantial public interest and media attention, the order reads. Listen. Okay, because listen, think of the contradictions. This is your job as a listener. Pay attention to the contradictions. The same Fran Gull. This case has generated substantial public interest and media attention. The judge goes on to say that to ensure the integrity of the proceedings, they will allow 1 or 2 media cameras in the courtroom for Thursday's hearing at the Allen County Courthouse. Court officials have ruled leaders with Court TV will provide a video stream for other media outlets to use. They say outlets will then be allowed to broadcast a proceeding on a 30-minute delay. Judge Gull ordered this Thursday's hearing in Fort Wayne to discuss the upcoming hearing on October 31st. October. Remember, these people are witchy poo. October 31st. 2023, and other matters which have recently arisen. The hearing is open to the public and members of the media with a max capacity of 90. They say seats will only be reserved for family members, and everyone else will be seated on first-come, first-served basis. The courthouse opens for the day at 8 a.m., and Allen's hearing is set for 2 p.m. Court executives say they will have increased security that day, and everyone who enters the courthouse must go through its metal detection system. Next one. Special judge in Delphi case denies more camera or more broadcast camera requests for trial. This is from the Indiana Lawyer, April 25th, 2024. The special judge in Richard Allen's murder trial next month has denied 3 more news organizations from accessing the proceedings with broadcast cameras. On Wednesday, Special Judge Francis Gold denied requests for recording of court proceedings by news media for WTHR-TV in Indy, ABC 57 News in South Bend, and News Media Coalition, which includes members like the Associated Press, Getty Images, the Guardian Media Group, and Thomson Reuters. Gull has not yet made an official ruling denying all cameras in the courtroom, according to court documents. Broadcast cameras were granted access to a hearing in October 2023, but have yet to be allowed back in since. Why do you guys think? Why do you guys think the cameras were allowed that day? Would my chat please catch up on what I'm talking about? And I haven't seen anyone say it yet. Why were those cameras allowed in? That one time they were. For transparency or as a weapon? Maybe I should give you that. Okay. Gull has only allowed camera access to one of Allen's courtroom hearings. That was on October 19th, when several TV stations worked together to have Court TV provide pool camera coverage for all participating broadcasters. Then the judge denied courtroom cameras for an October 31st hearing. The court docket cited unauthorized filming and broadcasting of pre-hearing activities in the courtroom at the October 19th hearing as the reason why. Courtroom camera requests from News Nation, Law and Crime, Court TV, and WTHR were all denied for the October 31st hearing. Earlier this month, Francis Gull rejected a request from Wish TV Channel 8 in Indianapolis. Allen is accused of murdering 14-year-old Liberty German and 13-year-old Abigail Williams in Delphi in February of 2017. The two girls were hiking along the Delphi historic trails near the Monon High Bridge. Now, from the Express Tribune, October 18th, 2024, Delphi murders, journalist cameras confiscated outside Richard Allen's murder trial in Indiana. Friday marked the start of Richard Allen's trial for the 2017 murders of two teenage girls, Abigail and Liberty. Special Judge Francis Gold, during a media orientation session on Thursday, had clearly stated that no photographs or video of jurors would be permitted. On Friday, Gannett photographer Alex Martin recounted the moment when two vans approached the fenced-off area on the west side of the courthouse. He described placing one camera on his hip and another on the ground. Despite his precautions, officers confiscated his equipment. "I wasn't taking pictures of the jurors," Martin said, added that he was positioned in an approved area. He also noted that 4 or 5 other photographers had their cameras seized as well. The fate of the confiscated cameras, including both still and video devices, remain uncertain, according to Martin. Judge Gull has imposed stringent media restrictions on the case, which is regarded as one of Indiana's most high-profile murder trials. Despite her participation in a pilot program allowing cameras in state courtrooms, Gull has banned them from Allen's trial entirely.
Oh my God!
In a June ruling, she expressed her concerns over media conduct, stating that the court has, quote, lost confidence in the ability of the media to cover hearings appropriately.
Bruh.
Judge in Delphi murders case continues to deny news media's requests to record trial. Special Judge Fran Gull denied 3 news outlets' requests to video and audio record Delphi murder suspect Allen's next trial, or trial next month, sorry. Gull issued 3 orders Tuesday that were published online Wednesday afternoon, denying requests to record the trial. The denied requests were from News Media Coalition, an NDTV station, and South Bend TV station. Earlier in the month, Gull denied another NDTV station. Gull allowed cameras in the courtroom for the October 19th, 2023 hearing, but her order specifically limited the recording to just the hearing. It banned any recording of attorney-client communications or bench conferences. The court has determined that allowing the recording of the October 19th, 2023 hearing is permitted, provided that the means of recording will not distract the participants or impair the dignity of the proceedings, and the hearing itself is a non-confidential proceeding. However, the recordings published from that hearing included clips filmed before and after the hearing and aired by various news outlets. Gull has denied each media request to record hearings in the trial without explanation since the October 19th hearing. Okay. Now, what am I saying here? All of you who are diehard followers of this case, you know that that circus or that trial was a circus. You know that it was a circus outside of that courthouse. It was an absolute circus, including a bunch of drunks partying and vomiting, a bunch of individuals hurling death threats, a bunch of screaming, yelling, pushing, filming. An absolute circus is what she caused outside of that courthouse in honor of Abby and Liberty. In honor of the victims, Abigail and Liberty, or in honor of Abby and Libby, Judge Gull created an absolute fucking circus at their trial for their murders. You're looking at a few examples of that circus. A true reflection of the worst of Indiana right here. Primarily consisting of bloodlusters, people just out for blood, not knowing what they were doing. Half of them never making it into the courthouse. Absolute circus, like a homeless encampment. You had individuals shitting, pissing, vomiting, camped out outside of this courthouse for nearly a month. Here are your examples of it. Absolute chaos. But this was the cost, okay? In other words, because she did not want the world to see the travesty that was happening in that courtroom. She did not want the world to be able to judge for themselves about the nature or the nature of the reality of what happened in that courtroom. In order to keep that from happening, in order to block any transparency, in order to save face, in order to accomplish a bulldozing, a railroading, a trampling of a man's rights, and lying witnesses, lying cops, and lying experts, she chose to block access and facilitate a circus. And she got what she wanted. It also facilitated a whole bunch of disinformation and misinformation out here in the world regarding what actually happened, and which we're only slowly getting. For instance, need I remind you of the Bridge Guy video controversy? That we still don't know and we still don't have what was shown in court that was supposed to be the number one piece of evidence in this case. It's the most compelling piece of evidence in this case. It's the thing that made this case become amplified on the world stage. Or to say it like young folks, to make it go viral. This is what made the Delphi murders go viral, was Bridge Guy. Yet, we still can't see what the jurors saw and what was shown in the courtroom. She has declared those are confidential exhibits. Although we had a couple knuckleheads leak a video out here in the world, which we know nothing about, which has no provenance, no authenticity, was created days before its release. We don't know nothing about the video that was released. All we know is the people who were sitting in the courtroom say it's not what they saw. And all we know is we can't get what was shown in the courtroom because those have been declared confidential exhibits. But what we were able to get was a whole bunch of shitting, vomiting, pissing, and drunks, and yelling and arguing and death threats. All in the name of our victims. Now keep in mind, I've said to you before, and I just want to reiterate, because this is a fact that all of you need to accept, which is that there was a concerted effort in the lead up to the first day of trial to influence the potential future jurors, or as some put it, to contaminate the jury pool. This group that I call the Troll Farm, who are the confidential informant, meth head, junkie pedophiles of Indiana, this criminal group, they led a years-long campaign in the lead up to the first day of trial to influence the jury. There's actually so many examples of it, I don't even know where to begin or what to show you. But I think I could show you one example. As a matter of fact, you might remember that our primary troll farm instigators and narrative spinners, who just happened to go stalk and harass everyone who's speaking with some sort of reason on this case, the very people who stalk and harass Noe, Rick Snay, myself, and others, they pulled their predictable maneuver, which was this. They set up multiple individuals strategically in multiple locations. They parked their vehicle in a strategic location, and they positioned their bodies with cameras rolling in a strategic position, which was, and always is, they position themselves every single time in between the doors of the courthouse where they know people will be exiting and the vehicles of their targets, such that, or so that, their targets will have to leave the courthouse through the only exit door that's available and will have to intersect with them on the way to their vehicles. So that happened in the lead up to trial, and I'm going to explain it to you specifically and very clearly. What they did is when the wife of Richard Allen and his mother, and that is Kathy and Janice Allen, Miss Kathy and Janice Allen, when they were leaving a hearing, our state actors positioned themselves specifically directly between those exit doors in their vehicle so that they would have to intersect, and they would then be able to pounce on her or them and film them in a discussion. And there was an objective to that, which we're going to discuss after I read this. But because of that, Mrs. Allen had her attorney issue a specific statement. I'm going to read that now. Okay? And he says, the following is in response to questions directed to Kathy Allen. My name is Dave Cloutier. I've been a licensed attorney in Indiana for over 28 years, practicing in South Bend and handling personal injury and wrongful death cases. Primarily in North Central Indiana, I can confirm that I am privileged to represent Kathy on a pro bono basis with respect to advising her about protecting her interest related to the publicity surrounding the State versus Allen case, in which Kathy's husband, Rick, is accused of the tragic murders of Liberty German and Abigail Williams. Kathy and I were brought together by a mutual acquaintance who, as a professional, felt strongly that Kathy needed advice and representation for herself. Over several months, I have gotten to know Kathy very well. She is under incredible stress and has handled it with grace, dignity, and goodwill. It has been a privilege to get to know someone with Kathy's strength. Kathy and I both have complete sympathy for the family of Libby and Abby, and for all the people of the Delphi area. It's difficult to imagine how hard it must be for families who deal with this loss and the unspeakable nature of what happened to Libby and Abby. For various reasons, Kathy has scrupulously avoided public comment of any kind, even in the face of repeated false claims and misinformation, both generically and specifically related to her. Kathy has no desire to do or say anything to prejudice any party's rights related to the upcoming trial. She has also been very careful to avoid doing or saying anything to add pain or anxiety to the families of Abby and Libby. However, recently, Kathy was contacted by the murder sheet, from whom she learned of a claim by an unknown person or persons about Kathy's marriage. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a troll farm. The very individuals who I'm describing, who strategically set themselves up in a position to film her and her mother, or Rick's mother, those individuals were the same ones who were spreading this information, but that's for a purpose we're going to get into. Let's continue. Question, Murder Sheet asked. Did Kathy consider her marriage to Rick to be over and now believes his alleged confessions? Relatedly, it was asked of Kathy whether she had some kind of recent change of heart and is on that basis going around saying these things. And I'm telling you guys, there's a reason for this, like everything they do. Kathy's answer to these questions is definitely and most emphatically no. Kathy's marriage has certainly been profoundly affected by Rick's incarceration, and both of them are suffering immense stress. Kathy loves her husband, believes in the sanctity of marriage vows, and believes that the same presumption of innocence our legal system gives to Rick should be given in equal measure by her to the husband she loves. As to her husband's alleged confessions, it is not true that Kathy now believes them. But at this time, Kathy will limit her response to just that. Finally, she has not been going around telling people these things. Kathy certainly has strong opinions and much to say about these matters more broadly. Perhaps in the very near future or further down the road, she may be willing to and able to say more. For the time being, she is only responding to the direct questions asked that do not relate to the facts of the case, but do relate to Kathy herself and her reputation. With malice towards no one, Kathy prays for justice and for healing for all innocent people affected by the murders of Libby and Abby. She's also extremely grateful for Rick's defense team of lawyers and their staff and investigators. They've been courteous and kind to her and very conscientious about representing her husband. So what was that all about? Well, good for me, I get to tell you, because I know what that was all about. What that was about was an effort to coerce Richard Allen to take the plea deal. And you know how I know? Because it was confessed to on multiple live streams by a couple of individuals who were involved in the scheme. What do I mean? What I mean is, this group of individuals who pulled off this stunt colluded to pull it off, to use as a weapon. All right? In other words, the objective was get Kathy on film saying something with leading questions. Then take that nugget and elaborate or fantasize or make shit up, which is what they did. They absolutely lied. And you know who did that. These are the leaders of the troll farm. You know them well. They decided to absolutely lie. Now, look, these are friends of the Patty family, right? They're friends of the cops. And some of them were there in Delphi when all this went down in 2017. And by that, I mean out at the trails. But what they decided is they was going to film Kathy and her mother, and whatever they got, they were going to blow out of proportion times 100, add in a whole bunch of blatant lies, outright lies. They literally came up with outright lies. Then they were going to get that information to Rick Allen in his cell to make him think that his family, his mother and his wife had turned against him. And this is literally quoting the individuals who confessed to this. They were going to make him feel as though no one believed in him anymore, even his family, even his mother and his wife, so that he'd feel alone, so that then he was going to go to Nick McClellan and make the plea deal. And that's what really happened. That's the extent to which these people were going to try to avoid trial. Like I said, this was never supposed to go to trial. They were so desperate at the time that they were sure that this scheme would work, just like they were sure that putting him in Westville and essentially torturing him for a year would work, or sending an MK Ultra nurse sextortionist in to show cleavage, waft the perfume, and manipulate mentally while he's drugged. But you see, none of this worked. Nothing worked. But it gets even worse. It does. Because it wasn't good enough to have to try all of this. They also tried, when they realized that this was going to trial, they realized they would have to affect the jury. They realized that they would have to select certain jurors. They realized that they would have to influence the jury pool, which is why there was such a push in the lead up to trial, all the way up to the first day of jury selection. That's right. And on the first day of jury selection, it all came to a screeching halt. It was interesting to observe. I beheld it in wonder. When you saw this massive PR push, or this massive narrative push directed at the potential future jurors, and when I saw that on the first day of jury selection, came to a screeching halt, it was astonishing to behold. But it got deep, because you had to realize that this jury had to be compromised. It had to be very gingerly constructed to accomplish this feat. Remember, this show is called Obstruction of Justice and the Conspiracy to Fix the Trial of Richard Allen. See, there's a lot that went on behind the scenes that people still don't know about. For instance, you all know about the barbecues with the police, right? Do you guys know that our jurors were cavorting with law enforcement at the hotel? Well, then there's this. Let's read this. According to screenshots obtained by Kane and co-host Kevin Greenlee, the group chat called the Due Process Gang consisted of Carol Weinecke, a lawyer who represented Allen in the fight to keep his attorneys on the case, an attorney representing Allen's attorneys, Michael Osbrook, and several YouTubers who talk about true crime cases that include the Delphi murders. That's the cranks. Kane said the reason our source did this is because he became very concerned about the level of contact between internet folks and people who are affiliated with the defense team. Weinecke told iTeam 8 that the group chat was filled with people who love true crime as she does. They talked about cases happening across the country. She claimed screenshots were obtained illegally. Well, that's false. How can you steal what's yours? Again, for all the people in the back who don't get it yet, how can you steal what's yours? With that in mind, let's take a gander at this. While Weinecke shared a statement with iTeam 8, recently out of revenge, a person who knew the password of one of my friends accessed her X account and copied all of her private conversations. False. It was his X account. Continuing. He gave those conversations to Murder Sheet. True. Who read some of them aloud on the recent episodes. True. The conversations were blended together and the messages were read out of order and out of context. False. Their purpose to make it seem like we were hired by Allen's defense team to sway public opinion. That's a statement. What? To make it seem like we were hired by Allen's defense team to sway public opinion. We were not. Well, maybe you were. Maybe you were. Let's continue. Kane and Greenlee said some of the messages in the group chat bring up ethical concerns of what? Potential jury tampering. Particularly when Weinecke and the other cranks talk about giving YouTube internet cranks or sleuths surveys filled out by potential jurors so they can do background investigations on them. Wait up.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry. I know that I'm getting a little loud here. What is being said here? What is being said again? Jury tampering. Particularly when the cranks talk about giving themselves surveys filled out by potential jurors so they can do background investigations on them. Kane said, where this becomes uncomfortable is when you're bringing in internet sleuths or cranks who are not even from Indiana to do this with zero training. I think even if they're signing things like NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, which we know they did, that should give people pause, because in the Delphi case especially, internet sleuths or cranks do not have the best reputation as far as ethics or not harassing people. Weinecke said, I expressed doubt that the defense would have time to vet hundreds of jurors before the May trial date. A friend offered her help. Oh, who is that? Who is that? So somebody who knows. No, yeah. Who's somebody who knows? And who's a friend? I think I know who. The leader. A friend offered her help. I said I would let the defense team know. I did. They said no. That is not jury tampering. All right. I just want to make sure that you understand the gravity of what's taking place here on all sides. Because remember, it's these same people, the people who are supposed to be here demanding justice in this process and calling out the injustices and advocating for the wrong for the I guess rights of Richard Allen by asserting that this is a wrongful conviction. Yes, these very people who just coincidentally are some of our worst attackers, harassers. So, do you understand what I'm saying? That there was an immense effort underway to manipulate, influence, and strategically arrange the jury for the Richard Allen trial. And this has happened on all sides. Now, keep in mind, you had these guys. You know who these guys are, don't you? Who are they walking with? Yeah, you could say I essentially had my own PI, boots on the ground there, keeping an eye on what actually was going down. Do you know what day those guys you just saw? Do you know which day of trial those guys right there attended? The one and only? You see, when I was a kid, I was an altar boy in the Catholic Church. And oddly enough, I paid real close attention to the way the priests wash their hands. Because, the priests have to handle the communion. And I always found that piece fascinating. And so, for some reason, when I'm a little kid, I was always curious about how the priests wash their hands. And so, as I grew, I always paid attention to this phrase: left hand wash the right hand clean, and all variations of it. Okay? Because this is an effort that has multiple fronts. And I mentioned, notice Judge Gull, she's getting out of the way right now because this is going to be a bad look that's coming. Oh, question. Where is John Gallipo right now? Is he still a warden at Westville? Oh, no. Right. Question. Where's Monica Walla right now? You see, In this entire game, it's chess. All of these characters are disposable once they've been used as a tool. As above, so below. As we're seeing in the administration of the state, we're also seeing here on the ground or out here in social media. This is serious. This is serious. You have to understand what was at stake in order for all of this to be worth it. Let's see, we're getting rid of a sheriff, we're getting rid of a judge, we're getting rid of a prosecutor, we're getting rid of another judge, we're getting rid of prison staff, we're getting rid of leadership, we're getting rid of attorneys. You see what I mean? Everyone's disposable in this. This is what it takes to obstruct justice in a conspiracy to fix a trial against one individual who's supposed to make this all go away. Remember, I've said Richard Allen was supposed to make the Delphi murders go away. That's the objective. But it won't, because too many see it now. Too many see. Everyone should be able to see that this was a wrongful conviction. No matter what your gut instinct is, whether you feel innocent or guilty involved or not, any person operating in good faith should be able to look closely at what's occurred and come to the conclusion that it's a wrongful conviction. And if you think it's a wrongful conviction, then that means it's unsubstantiated, which means if you want to believe he's guilty, you should want it to be proven where there's no question. Because a rightful conviction in which he ends up with guilt should be what satisfies you and what satisfies the world that justice has been served. But we know that's not the way it was, and that's not the way it's going to be. And any sort of conviction of a person, when so much is at stake, should be built on something substantial, or it should not be brought. And one thing anyone should be able to see is that there's nothing. If there was something on Richard Allen, all of this would not be necessary. Do you see what I mean? If there was something, any shred of evidence against Richard Allen, then all of this would not be necessary. And that's why it's clear to me that there's nothing on Richard Allen. Everything on Richard Allen is fabricated. And even the families of the victims, even those who believe in his guilt, even they have to resort to a statement such as, It's the totality of the circumstances that says he's guilty. So I guess now we're shifting to part two of the show. We're going to shift to part two because now we're going to get to what I want to get to. And maybe I'll eat a piece of chocolate and get my sugar back up or my fuel back up. But basically, what we're going to be looking at is the appellate brief, and that we're going to look at only the portion we're going to cover tonight. Okay. So let's see. We're going to start here on page 10. All right. Sorry about that. Having my little chocolate. Now we're going to look at, as I mentioned, we're going to take this thing in reverse. So for the next 3 episodes, that's tonight, the next, and the next 3 live streams, we'll be looking at these issues according to the appellant's brief. But we're going to go in reverse. So tonight, we're going to take part 3 first. And then Friday night, we'll take part 2. And then following that, we'll take part 1. So we're going in reverse order of the appellate filing here. But if you look here, I'll read the 3 statements so that we can orient, okay? Statements at issue. Whether the search of Allen's home was unconstitutional, okay? Number 2, whether statements Allen made while gravely disabled during unprecedented pretrial solitary confinement were involuntary, i.e. the confessions. And number 3, whether the trial court denied Allen right to a fair trial, to present a complete defense, and to explain the scene and impeach the investigation. And so let's put that in layman's terms. Whether Judge Gull denied Allen his rights or not. Okay, that's what we're covering tonight, number 3. I'll briefly start here. On October 28, 2022, I don't know if you in the chat have seen the screenshot that I laid out, but by the way, y'all, there's a significance to that date, October 28th. I recently published a screenshot that's interesting in terms of that, but the state charged Richard Allen with 2 counts of felony murder by kidnapping. Oddly enough, kidnapping. If you think about what my theory here is, which was amended on March 22 to add 2 counts of murder. On November 11, 2024, following a 25-day trial, the jury returned a guilty verdict on all counts. The trial court sentenced Allen to an aggregate sentence of 130 years. That's right, 13. 130 years. Allen filed a motion to correct error, which the trial court denied. Statement of facts. On February 14, 2017, a 14-year-old Liberty German and 13-year-old Abigail Williams were found dead in the woods. 2 days later, Allen, like many others, came forward and reported he had been on the trail that day and saw 3 girls. Because law enforcement wanted to know whether he had seen any possible suspects, he was interviewed in a parking lot. After the interview, the lead was marked cleared, and the report was, quote unquote, misfiled. Now, this is all according to the fantasy world narrative scenario, okay? This is a fairy tale narrative scenario, what actually happened, because we know this didn't happen this way. This is all artificial. There was no misfiling. Okay, there was no misfiling. This was an entire fantasy world scenario to explain why suddenly they decided to pursue Allen, okay? Because what actually happened is he was targeted in the years prior to his arrest, but we'll get to that later. Allen then returned to his job, family, and home in small Delphi community. For the next 5 years, he did not sell his car, destroy his clothing, dispose of his gun, or relocate, but continued his normal routine like an innocent man. Additionally, not a single witness identified Allen as Bridge Guy or Allen as who they intended to sketch in the questionable ass sketches that we know. When the report was rediscovered, quote unquote, which I said is the bullshit story, that's not the way it happened. But in September 2022, law enforcement insisted Allen was Bridge Guy without a single eyewitness. Over the next several years, the state built its case against Allen. Now, we're going to jump ahead to our thing for tonight. Let me make sure I'm on the right page here. There we go. Okay, this is, I guess, page 86. This is where we're starting. Again, I said we're going in reverse order. So we're going to start with number 3 here, which is our topic for tonight. Again, this show is titled Delphi Obstruction of Justice and the Conspiracy to Fix the Trial of Richard Allen. Could someone do me a favor? If you're on the replay, leave comments down below. And if you're in the chat, please support the channel and our support pathways. I'm going to throw them up here on the screen. Support the channel, y'all. All right. Okay. Check, check. Okay. The court denied, and by the court we mean Judge Gull. Okay, this is all about Judge Gull. Judge Gull denied Allen his right to present a complete defense to explain the scene and impeach the investigation. The 14th Amendment guarantees a defendant the right to a fair trial. The amendment's due process clause places significant substantive limits on state power, prohibiting its arbitrary exertion and guaranteeing criminal defendants a fair opportunity to defend against the state's accusations. For an opportunity to be fair, a defendant must be permitted to, quote, confront and cross-examine witnesses and to call witnesses in his or her own behalf. These overarching principles operate in tandem with the Sixth Amendment, which similarly guarantees criminal defendants a meaningful opportunity, here we go, to present a complete defense. Although trial courts have broad discretion in conducting trials, this discretion has constitutional limits. That is, courts may not, quote, infringe upon a weighty interest of the accused through decisions that are arbitrary or disproportionate to the purposes they are designed to serve. As explained more fully below, the trial court made several, this means Judge Gull, every time you hear this term, Judge Gull made several reversible errors under the rules of evidence and Indiana trial rules. In many instances, these decisions violated the Constitution as well. Standard of review. While this court assesses claims relating to admitting or excluding evidence for abuse of discretion, to the extent those claims implicate constitutional issues, this court reviews them de novo. Errors in the admission of evidence will be disregarded as harmless if its probable impact on the jury in light of all the evidence in the case is sufficiently minor so as not to affect the substantial rights of the parties. But when the error is constitutional, the standard is higher. Generally, before a federal constitutional error can be held harmless, the court must be able to declare a belief, check, check, All right, check, check. Is my sound not working? Let's see. Check, check. All right. All right, thank you. I'm sorry. You guys, okay. But when the error is constitutional, the standard is higher. Generally, before a federal constitutional error can be held harmless, the court must be able to declare a belief that it was harmless beyond a reasonable doubt. The court committed, or Judge Gull committed, reversible error by excluding Betsy Blair's sketch of Bridge Guy. Hello? Hello?
Oh my God.
At trial, the court prohibited Allen from using Betsy Blair's sketch of Bridge Guy. This decision violated our rules of evidence and denied Allen his constitutional right to present a defense of mistaken identity. Does anyone hear this? Evidence is relevant when it has any tendency to make the existence of any fact that is of consequence to the determination of the action more probable or less probable than it would be without the evidence. A court may exclude relevant evidence if its probative value is substantially outweighed by a danger of unfair prejudice, confusing the issues, misleading the jury, undue delay, or needlessly presenting cumulative evidence. Betsy Blair's sketch proves she did not see Allen on the bridge. Look at this. Betsy Blair did not identify Allen in court as Bridge Guy. But according to the prosecutor, Blair must have seen Allen on the bridge because Allen told us he went onto the Monon High Bridge out on the first platform, which is exactly where Blair saw Bridge Guy. Hey, question, guys. Let's see. Let's say if you go, I don't know, stand at the, I don't know, in front of the door of Walgreens in your local neighborhood Walgreens. You go stand outside of the sliding glass door right at your Walgreens. But let's say you go there at like 5:54 p.m., okay? Oh, and let's say, I don't know, 35 45 minutes later, someone else go stand in that spot once you've left. Are you that person? It must be you. It must be you because you said you went to Walgreens and stood in a spot in front of the door. And then someone saw someone's standing in front of the door. Obviously it must be you. Because two people can't be in the same place. Blair's sketch shows Allen looked nothing like the person Blair saw. Just 3 days after the murders, Blair met with a sketch artist and described the man she saw on the bridge as white, about 20 years old, of medium build, and having brown curly hair. An artist created the following sketch based on Blair's description. This looks nothing like Allen. At the time of the murders, Allen was short, 44 years old, with closely cropped hair. Hey, but you know who it does look like? Daniel Pearson. Blair's sketch also shows that she and Carbaugh saw different people. The state's timeline for the murders is dependent upon Carbaugh and Blair seeing the same person. And the prosecutor told the jury, unethically, that every eyewitness is adamant the person they saw is Bridge Guy. There's no doubt in their minds. But Blair's sketch disproves this claim. Carbaugh, like Blair, made a sketch. When Blair saw it, she described it as wrong and not who she saw. Blair's sketch impeaches the investigation and shows law enforcement bias against Allen. For 2 years, law enforcement circulated the old guy sketch, right? Sarah Carbaugh's sketch, without it yielding a single arrest. And abruptly, in April 2019, Indiana State Police released Betsy Blair's young guy sketch and declared it represented the face of Bridge Guy, and announced that Blair and Carbaugh did not see the same person. In fact, after Allen's arrest, the story changed. And the jury was told Carbaugh and Blair saw the same person. Betsy Blair's sketch was reliable and probative of Bridge Guy's identity. Blair contacted law enforcement the day the girls went missing, and it was very clear to her she saw Bridge Guy. 2 days later, she developed her sketch with an artist and a book of facial features. She rated her sketch 10 out of 10 for accuracy. In 2019, she met with law enforcement repeatedly, and she reaffirmed her confidence in her sketch. She insisted that she could identify Bridge Guy if she saw him. So why didn't she? Blair's sketch is not hearsay. Indiana bars the use of out-of-court statements for truth of the matter asserted unless the statement falls within an exception. Here, Blair's sketch was not a statement. Although Indiana has not reached the issue, other courts hold that a sketch is the functional equivalent of a photograph. A sketch is not a photograph, is not a sketch, is not a photograph. No statement is involved. The sketch is not hearsay. A statement is not hearsay if the declarant testifies and is subject to cross-examination about a prior statement, and the statement is an identification of a person shortly after perceiving the person. The rule applies regardless of whether the identifying witness makes a positive in-court identification or not. Here, Blair identified Bridge Guy to law enforcement immediately and developed her sketch 3 days later. Blair's sketch is also admissible as an adoptive admission. A statement is not hearsay when it is offered against an opposing party and is one the party manifested that it adopted or believed to be true. That occurred here. In April 2019, the Indiana State Police released Betsy Blair's sketch to the public and declared, "This is the face of Bridge Guy." Blair's sketch is admissible under Indiana's common law too. Decades before Indiana adopted the rules of evidence, sketches were admissible if the eyewitness took the stand at trial. Sorry about that. Even if the sketch was inadmissible hearsay, Allen was still entitled to use it. State law does not have the last word on hearsay, and the rule must yield to the constitutional right to present a defense. When identity is crucial to the case, such as this one, a defendant is entitled to defend on a claim of mistaken identity. Remember, guys, what's the whole narrative that the prosecutor and the families and all the guilters and the bloodlusters, what's the narrative they run with? The narrative they run with is, well, there's no evidence of Rick Allen, but, they proved that Bridge Guy killed the girls, and they proved that Rick Allen is Bridge Guy. Again, they proved that Rick Allen is Bridge Guy, and Bridge Guy killed the girls. They proved that Rick Allen was Bridge Guy. This is what this pertains to here. This right cannot be abridged through the application of arbitrary or disproportionate rules or the mechanistic application of the otherwise rational rules. Excluding the sketch violated the Constitution. Here, the state concedes that Bridge Guy's identity was crucial to the case. If we can determine who Bridge Guy is, we can determine who killed Abby and Libby. Blair's sketch was critical to Allen's defense of mistaken identity, and the judge's decision to exclude it was absolutely arbitrary and disproportionate to any legitimate government interest. The error was harmful under both the constitutional harmless error standard and Indiana's evidentiary standard. There's no dispute that the state's timeline depended upon Blair seeing Allen on the bridge and Blair and Carbaugh seeing the same person, Rick Allen. Blair's sketch disproved both of those points. It proves that Blair did not see the same individual that Carbaugh saw, and it also proves that Blair did not see Allen on the bridge. Excluding it, by Judge Gohl excluding it, it affected Allen's substantial rights and the verdict of the jury. Okay, so that's point one for all of you who are keeping score here. If you're keeping score, point one, Betsy Blair's sketch. Now, let's move on to point number two. Point number two in the egregious errors of Judge Gohl in the effort to obstruct justice in the case of State v. Richard Allen. The court committed reversible error in excluding expert Tobin's testimony. Allen tendered William Tobin to explain the scientific community's robust criticism of the AFTE's two-mark matching methodology. In other words, that'd be a bullshit. Okay? So Tobin was supposed to take the stand and say, that'd be a bullshit. The judge excluded him because he was not a quote-unquote firearms expert. He was untrained in firearms identification. He did not examine the evidence in the case, and he did not conduct a firearms examination. According to the court, Judge Gohl, Tobin's testimony does not go to an issue before the jury and lacks relevance. This decision violated rules of evidence and violated Allen's constitutional rights to present a defense. Expert testimony should be admitted if 1, the expert is qualified by knowledge, skill, experience, training, and or education, and 2, the testimony will help the trier of fact to understand the evidence or to determine a fact and issue. And that's your point right there is number 2. Again, Tobin's testimony would have helped the trier of fact to understand the evidence or to determine a fact. Tobin was clearly qualified to explain the scientific community's robust criticism of this AFTE methodology. Tobin is a nationally recognized expert in forensic metallurgy and material science who has testified as an expert in many cases involving the validity and reliability of firearms and tool marks. Listen to that again. Tobin is a nationally recognized expert in forensic metallurgy and material science who has testified as an expert in many cases involving the validity and reliability of firearms and tool marks. He has extensive experience in metallurgy, bullet and lead analysis, and tool mark principles, along with a background in statistics. He understands the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology, which has issued a detailed report criticizing this AFTE methodology. Tobin's testimony was essential for assessing Melissa Oberg's credibility and determining what to believe. Again, it was essential. Think of this. Tobin's testimony was essential for the jury assessing the state's firearm witness or expert, her credibility, and in determining whether to believe the state's firearm witness. Once an expert takes the stand, their credibility is fair game for impeachment, and he should have been allowed to impeach her methodology. A party is free to challenge the expert's methodology with an opposing testimony from another similarly qualified expert. The jury is ultimately responsible for assessing which witnessing credibility or expert credibility, and then to determine whether to believe them or not, or what to believe. Here, the state's expert, quote unquote, Melissa Oberg, testified that she matched tool marks on test firings from Allen's gun with tool marks on an unspent cartridge found at the murder scene. You cannot make this up. Oberg told the jury she found agreement between tool marks by using the AFTE methodology. She gave an error rate of 2% for false positives and 2.87% for false negatives. She discussed studies and articles that she reviewed to apply the methodology. And over relevancy objections, she described studies relating to guns that were not even Sig Sauer Model P239s. A lay juror might find this testimony impressive and coherent, but AFTE's methodology is anything but straightforward. Defense expert Tobin's experience would have helped a jury understand the scientific community's criticism of this very methodology, this subjective methodology. And it would force the state's expert, Melissa Oberg, to engage with that criticism or to answer for it. Even if our rules in Indiana tolerated Tobin's exclusion, the decision was patently unconstitutional. A defendant is entitled to a, quote, meaningful opportunity to present a complete defense. This entitles him to impeach a witness who provides a crucial link in the proof of the defendant's guilt, and in this case, the only alleged proof of any link to him to the crime was this supposed bullet, which had to be fired with a flimsy methodology comparing one that had to not be fired. You just can't make it up. Although trial courts possess broad discretion to limit impeachment, the discretion cannot be used to arbitrarily exclude competent, reliable evidence bearing on witness credibility when such evidence is central to the defendant's claim of innocence. Here, the state's expert, Melissa Oberg's credibility was central to the case, and the judge arbitrarily excluded William Tobin. Tobin is an expert in the AFTE methodology, which was the methodology she used, and an expert in its shortcomings. He is experienced with firearms identification, and I examined Oberg's materials. There was no legitimate state interest in excluding William Tobin. Allen did not waive his right to appeal the Tobin issue by calling Warren. A party aggrieved by an erroneous evidentiary ruling is entitled to respond to the improper ruling without sacrificing the right to appellate recourse. Once the court excluded Tobin, Allen responded by calling Warren, who endorsed the use of the AFTE methodology and engaged Oberg in a battle of experts over how to properly apply the methodology to the evidence. This decision did not waive Richard Allen's right to appeal Tobin's exclusion. And that's a very important point for you troll farm bloodlusters. You fantasy world driven, bloodlusty demons, meth infused, hateful pricks who always try to nitpick in order to try to pigeonhole Richard Allen into this murder seat. You have to take this and use it as a suppository. The exclusion of Tobin and then the calling of Warren does not exclude Tobin from being an appealable issue, or his exclusion being an appealable issue. So you can't go out there yelling and screaming that, no, they called Warren instead. Because clearly these appellate attorneys are laying out for you the fact that it doesn't matter if they were forced to then go pull someone else to argue a different angle. The fact is that Richard Allen had a right to utilize Tobin to counter or challenge Melissa Oberg's allegations. And that was denied by Judge Gull. Again, this is all about Judge Gull's egregious errors. This is the topic of tonight. The error was harmful under both the constitutional standard and evidentiary standard. So think about it. This is Judge Gull violating the Constitution and the rules of evidence. That's layman's terms. The state told the jury, Oberg's never been wrong. You guys remember that? You can't make this shit up, man. You cannot make this shit up.
Oh my God.
Bruh. Can't make it up. Of course, the state's expert in firearms and ballistics who had to fire this round to match the markings on an unspent ejected round. She's never been wrong. And then the prosecutor hurled the further accusation that Allen has no explanation of how the bullet from his gun ended up between the bodies of Abigail and Liberty. 6 inches from Liberty's foot. Yeah, because you know why? Because he didn't fucking put it there. That's what he said. He said, if that bullet was found between those dead girls, it ain't mine. I don't know how it got there. Well, it's probably planted. Let's be real here. Look, the fact with this bullet, let me do this. Okay, sorry. I just feel like being a jerk or something. I'm getting a little off topic, but let's see. See if I can manifest. Let's see. Maybe I can't. That's okay. It's not working. That bullet was likely planted. Let's be honest here. Anyone with common sense, you look at the bullet. I put them on my community page. You can see them there. You look at the bullets, or the bullet, where it is, the size of it, and just think of how easy that would be to plant in that chest. All right. Had the jury heard William Tobin's robust impeachment of Oberg's flimsy methodology, the outcome of this case would have been different. Now, let's move on. Okay. So again, I think the takeaway for you guys needs to be that. So let me pull this down for a moment. Just let's huddle. Let's have a huddle. Point one was that the judge wrongfully omitted Betsy Blair's sketch, which could have been used for establishing mistaken identity, right? Point number two, she wrongly excluded William Tobin as a metallurgic expert to counter Melissa Oberg's methodology. Okay. Now we're going to go to point three, which is that the court committed reversible error by admitting hearsay in to rehabilitate the timeline upon which the state built its entire flimsy case. The state built its entire bullshit case upon the following timeline. Allen encountered the girls at 2:13. He's a lone wolf killer, completing the murders alone. He left Liberty's phone at the murder scene, was spotted by Sarah Carba, leaving the scene at 3:56 p.m. and never returned. If Allen committed the murders, there should be no human-initiated activity on Liberty German's phone after 3:56 p.m. Aha! But there was. And here's another point where the bloodluster guilty demons have an extremely difficult time addressing reality. At trial, Allen called Stacey Eldridge. Now, listen to this closely, okay? Stacey Eldridge, now listen closely. I have to put my face on the screen to make you listen. Listen closely. Stacey Eldridge is or was or is a former FBI forensic examiner. Stacey Eldridge, a former FBI forensic analyst, examined the data from Liberty's phone and testified that wired headphones or an auxiliary cable were plugged into the phone at 5:45 p.m. Now remember, 5 minutes later, one of these three phones leaves the crime scene. I've spoken about that before. Also remember, there's other phones traversing the crime scene the entire night. And Stacey Eldridge claims that at 10:32 p.m. on February 13th, the wired headphone or auxiliary cable was removed from the phone. This action would silence a phone call. In fact, she noted that the data showed an incoming phone call just mere fractions of a second before the headphones or auxiliary cable was inserted, suggesting that someone was intentionally trying to silence Liberty's phone by popping in that headphone jack. Now, since the state claimed that lone wolf killer Richard Allen left the scene at 3:56 p.m., Stacey Eldridge's expert evidence eviscerated this timeline and showed that someone else had to commit the murders. The state responded by asking their own Christopher Cecil whether water damage could simulate headphones being plugged in. Over a hearsay objection, Cecil testified he Googled it and found some unspecified, non-peer-reviewed, rando-ass shit on the internet in a troubleshooting forum. Cecil's testimony was absolutely inadmissible totem pole hearsay. Just think about that. Think about that. This is what was allowed in this courtroom, okay? This is what I mean about the absolute, egregious, in your face miscarriage of justice that was done brazenly in the courtroom for the entire world to see that they have the power and you don't. Out of court statements are not admissible for truth. Totem pole hearsay For totem pole hearsay to be admissible, each part of the combined statements must conform with an exception to the rule. Here, the post on troubleshooting forums are at least double hearsay. Number one, on an internet forum. Number two, statements posted there. Cecil's status as an expert, quote unquote, does not affect the hearsay analysis. Statements contained in a reliable authority can be admitted over hearsay objection when used to contradict an expert who is testifying on the witness stand. But here, in this instance, the online forum was neither reliable nor used to contradict. Rule 703 does not avail the state either. Under Rule 703, experts may testify to opinions based on inadmissible evidence if the evidence is of the type reasonably relied upon by experts in the field. The rule, however, does not authorize experts to parrot facts that the expert adds nothing to. Cecil added nothing here. He was a mouthpiece for totem pole hearsay that he Googled. And this has been referred to as a Cecil search. This is a Cecil search, which he was allowed to present to the jury, just like a whole bunch of other stuff was allowed to be presented to the jury. This is an absolute railroading. It's an absolute wrongful conviction, and it's an absolute miscarriage of justice. And if you don't understand that yet, then I hope it's you someday. The error was constitutional. A defendant is entitled to a fair opportunity to defend against the state's accusations. This includes the right to impeach a witness through cross-examination when they provide a crucial link in the defendant's guilt. Here, the judge arbitrarily, that means Judge Gall, arbitrarily allowed the state to undermine Stacey Eldridge's testimony with a person's internet post. An unknown person's internet post, I must add. And it was impossible for Rick Allen and his attorneys to impeach the person, the rando account, posting on an internet forum through cross-examination. The error was absolutely harmful, and Eldridge's testimony undermined the timeline upon which the state built its case, and allowing the state to rehabilitate the timeline affected Allen's substantial rights and the jury's decision. So I hope everyone understands what's being said there. In other words, the state's timeline is absolutely dependent upon that Cecil search. Do you see what I mean? Because this headphone jack issue would have eviscerated this state's timeline, which means the timeline then dissolves. Okay? The timeline dissolves because of Stacey Eldridge. The jury would have known that. So by allowing a Cecil search to be brought in and presented to the jury as fact, you allowed the state to repair that broken timeline, which then prejudiced the jury towards Rick Allen's guilt. The court committed reversible error by excluding evidence that impeached the credibility of Allen's confessions. At trial, Allen sought to impeach the credibility of his confessions. The judge made 3 reversible errors. Now, we're going to get into this now. Together, these 3 decisions violated his right to present a defense. And please remember, this is all about Judge Gull tonight. I hope all of you are paying attention to what this is about. This isn't about McClellan. This isn't about the experts. This isn't about Cecil. This isn't about Rick Allen. This isn't about any of these players. This is solely on Judge Gull's head. Okay, tonight. So in addition to all we've just been through, there's 3 decisions violating his constitutional right to present a defense. Okay, now we're going to get into how the confessions break down like this. When a defendant confesses, quote unquote, the manner in which the confession was obtained is relevant to the confession's credibility, naturally. Number 1, the court erred, and by the court, I'm just reminding you, we mean Judge Gull. Judge Gull erred by excluding the audio from Allen's solitary confinement videos. At trial, Rick Allen moved to introduce 15 videos showing the conditions he endured in solitary confinement. Okay, now this was to build the case for the actual condition of his mental state during the time that these confessions occurred, right? Well, Judge Gull sustained the state's hearsay objection. Remember Nicholas McClellan wildly objecting every time something important came up? This is case in point. So they wanted to bring in the 15 videos showing the absolute atrocities and the deterioration in the mental state, utilizing the audio and video in order to show the or establish the frame during which these confessions took place. And Judge Gull sustained Nicholas McClellan's wildly objecting to this. This was reversible error. This is what I mean. The state of Indiana, it would behoove them to grant this appeal. You see? Because this is a really bad look. The audio shows a delusional, confused, and disorganized mind. The evidence can only be fully appreciated by listening to it. Accordingly, Allen respectfully requests the court to watch the videos with audio. The statements in these videos are not hearsay. Statements are not hearsay when they are used to prove a defendant's state of mind. This was precisely Allen's purpose in offering this as evidence, and the trial court conceded this. Please listen to that one again. It's important. The statements in those videos are not hearsay. Statements are not hearsay when they are used to prove a defendant's state of mind, which is precisely how Allen's defense offered this evidence, and the trial court conceded. Judge Gull conceded this is the way it was offered, and this is direct from the rules of evidence. To the extent that there are older cases suggesting that a defendant can never admit his own statements, those decisions are inconsistent with the adoption of modern rules of evidence. The audio in the video is also relevant because it impeaches Dr. Manakawala's testimony and undermines her medical records. Walla's evidence gave the misleading impression that Allen provided organized and detailed confessions with a beginning, middle, and end. But the omitted audio rebuts this, showing a disorganized, nonsensical, and confused Allen. On May 3rd, for example, Dr. Manakawala describes Allen's mind as more organized than he'd been. But the April 28th video puts his statements in context, showing a disjointed, tangential, nonsensical, and rambling Allen. He is plainly psychotic and uncredible. The audio also presents a vivid picture of solitary confinement's harsh conditions. Staff talk callously to Allen. Guards remark how long feces is on his back. Inmates tell him to kill himself. And medical staff ignore obvious signs of serious mental illness and overmedication. In one video, medical personnel ask Allen about his cholesterol and blood pressure while ignoring his catatonia and drool. Without the audio, this video presents a misleading impression that the medical professionals are attentive when in fact they are not. The error was harmful in that the audio shows that Allen's statements in solitary confinement are unworthy of belief. Excluding this context, just understand what's being said. Excluding these statements or this audio and video, excluding this context for Rick Allen's actual mental state and the behavior of those around him in Westville affected his substantial rights and likely, absolutely influenced the jury's decision. This is court error by Judge Gull. Okay, moving on. Judge Gull, the trial court, committed reversible error in prohibiting the jury from hearing two phone calls Allen made on April 3rd, 2023. And remember that date. On April 2nd, Allen called his mother and discussed finding religion. In the early morning hours of April 3rd, Allen made 3 intertwined calls. Over objection, the jury heard the second call where Allen confessed to his wife, but the judge prohibited the jury from hearing the other calls that bookended it, where Allen questioned his sanity and the veracity of his own statements. Of course, Trooper Brian Harshman's testimony made the error even worse. Over objection, Harshman claimed that when confessing, Allen was consistently calm, subdued, and solemn in tone, showing no indication of duress or stress because he's a psychologist, right? But the excluded April 3rd call discredits that testimony. Allen was confused and forgetful in those. He was in a delirium. He believed he was losing his mind and that the IDOC was poisoning him. He referred to being mentally tortured, comparing his environment to Guantanamo Bay. Rightfully so.
I'm legally blind.
Independently, this error was harmful and warrants reversal. In closing, the prosecutor told the jury Allen started confessing on April 3rd. See? You see the dates? April 3rd, April 3rd, April 3rd, April 3rd, April 3rd, April 3rd. On this day, prosecutor told the jury Allen started confessing because he'd given himself to Jesus. The excluded April 3rd calls tell a different story. Allen was losing his fucking mind, showing lapses in memory and confusing dreams with reality. The prosecutor got to offer an inculpatory story for how the confession started, while Allen was prohibited from presenting an exculpatory story through contemporaneous framing or contextual evidence. It's absolute travesty. Number 3, the trial court erred. Judge Gull made an error by excluding statements and behaviors that provided the foundation for Dr. Grazian's opinion that Allen's confessions were not credible. At trial, Dr. Grazian testified that Allen suffered from delirium, but the judge prohibited Dr. Grazian from discussing the statements that provided the foundation for this opinion, including Allen's statements that were plainly false. This was reversible error. Firstly, Allen's false statements were not hearsay. He offered the statements to show his state of mind and prove that he was saying things unworthy of belief. Second, even if hearsay, the statements were admissible under Evidence Rule 703, which provides experts may testify, quote, to opinions based on inadmissible evidence provided that it is of the type reasonably relied upon by experts in the field. Thirdly, the statements were admissible. Allen's statements were admissible because the state opened the door 3 times. Trooper Harshman testified that Allen's confessions were consistent with the facts and included details, quote, only the killer would know. Remember, that's the troll farm talking point, which is bullshit. You know how so? Because Dr. Monica Walla, Dr. Monica Walla, she knew details only the killer would know that came from every fucking live stream on YouTube. You get it? The state also paraded witnesses before the jury who opined that Allen's mind was intact when he confessed. It's just, you can't make this shit up. This is the conspiracy to fix the trial, right? His mind was intact and he was faking his symptoms. And Dr. Walla testified she saw no reason to screen him for delirium. Allen was entitled to counter all of this with evidence that his statements were false, inconsistent with the murder scene, and consistent with delirium. Independently, this error was harmful and warrants reversal. In closing, the prosecutor molded this fantasy world story. The absolute most disgusting behavior of this entire trial was Nicholas McClelland's opening and closing statements. And if you don't believe me, go read them. And if you're not going to go on your own, we're going to cover them soon. Okay, we're going to read and listen to McClelland's open and closing. And they're the most egregious, disgusting statements you've ever heard. Okay? But McClelland molded a story that despite Allen's undisputed psychosis, his confessions were truthful. The judge affected the jury's decision. Judge Gull, like I said, this is the fixing of the trial of Richard Allen. She affected the jury's decision when she prohibited Rick from showing that he made repeated untruthful confessions that didn't match. Together, the above 3 errors violated the constitutional rights of Richard Allen. The Constitution prohibits a court from stripping a defendant of the power to describe to the jury the circumstances that prompted his confessions. Okay? This is precisely what occurred. Allen repeatedly presented evidence that placed his confessions into context and impeached the credibility of them, but the judge, Judge Gull, arbitrarily excluded all that evidence and disproportionately ruled in the state's favor. This is bias, and this manipulated the jury's outcome. And remember this. You guys need to remember this lie. Do you remember the troll farm doing what they do in order to, remember, they were trying to influence the potential future jurors. Do you remember them saying, he confessed 61 times? He made 61 confessions. Just like, do you remember Brian Harshman taking the stand and saying, "Oh, absolutely, that's his voice." The bridge guy, the voice on the bridge guy video, it's absolutely Rick Allen's voice. I've listened to thousands and hundreds and millions of calls, and that's absolutely same voice as Rick Allen. Remember, Brian Harshman is the only one that pointed to Rick Allen this entire goddamn trial. Betsy Blair didn't point at Rick Allen. Sarah Carbaugh didn't point at Rick Allen. None of the witnesses point at Rick Allen. The sketches don't point at Rick Allen. The only thing that pointed at Rick Allen was Brian Harshman. But 61 confessions, right? 61 fucking confessions. Let's see. How many were they really? How many statements that could be considered confessions? In the height of his psychosis, or I should say the depths of his psychosis, how many confessions for real? 4 or 5? But the state got to have its agents run out here to social media in the year prior and say 61 confessions, 61 confessions, 61 confessions. And every newspaper, every news station, every YouTuber, every Facebooker, 61 confessions, 61. You don't think that affected the potential future jurors? Trial court committed reversible error in denying Allen's motion to correct error. Allen filed a motion to correct errors, arguing the state elicited false testimony and allowed it to go uncorrected. That's right. The state elicited false testimony. In other words, the witnesses lied. The experts lied. People lied. And the state knowingly, the prosecutor knowingly allowed it to go uncorrected. And of course, Judge Gold denied the motion. The 14th Amendment is violated when the prosecution knowingly solicits false testimony or knowingly allows it to go uncorrected. This is the weight of the state on the neck of the defendant. According to Dr. Walla, Allen confessed that he was attempting to grape the girls, but abandoned his efforts and fled with them across the creek when he saw a van. At trial, the state elicited testimony from Brad Weber, who told the jury he left work at Subaru factory in Lafayette around 2:02 p.m. and drove his white van directly home. The prosecutor told the jury that the timeline for Weber's testimony, Allen's confession, and the step data on LG's phone matched perfectly and proved Allen was guilty. Of course, here's a little gaslight for you. If you take a look at the health app data, there's a pause in the movement for 7 minutes. He has 7 minutes with them, but before he can finish his deed or deeds, he sees a van. Brad Weber's coming home from work down his private drive from to his home, and he scares Richard Allen. Then Richard Allen forces the girl across the creek to a spot in the woods, a secluded spot, and kills him and cuts their neck. Weber's testimony was false, and the state knew it. Specifically, security camera footage from Weber's neighbor showed him arriving home at around 2:44, 2:45 p.m. And an FBI report showed Weber's cell phone arriving home at 2:50 p.m., which all lines up, doesn't it? The error was constitutional and requires reversal. If this would have been corrected, it would have shown that Weber arrived home and that his arrival was inconsistent with the state's fucking timeline. Once again, it's another issue here that destroys the state's timeline. He arrived 25 entire minutes after the pause in movement on Liberty's phone, and nearly 15 minutes after the phone was on the other side of the creek. which means there's absolutely no way it went down the way the state was able to tell the jury it went down. Allen's statements to Walla, well, let me put it more accurately. Allen's alleged statements to Walla about this white van that, by the way, the entire social media sphere around Delphi already knew about, therefore would not be something that only the killer would know, are inconsistent with the truth and suggest he was delirious. And it also suggests to me that he was fed information. Or you could even put it the other way, information was was milked out of him, right? Fished out of him. Oh, you didn't see a van, did you? You know, you get what I'm saying? You didn't you weren't attempting to do something to those girls and a white van scared you, did it?
Oh my God!
Oh, yeah. All right. The trial court, Judge Gull, committed reversible error when it excluded Allen's evidence explaining this murder as a ritual killing. The trial court prohibited Allen from explaining the murder scene as a ritual killing. This is reversible error. Evidence which tends to show that someone else committed the crime logically makes it less probable that the defendant committed the crime and thus meets the definition of relevance. Here, Allen tendered Don Perlmutter, a recognized expert in ritualistic killings and atypical homicides, to explain the elements of ritual killings. Ritual killings commonly occur outdoors in wooded areas near bodies of water. They occur on holidays significant to the group and commonly involve the use of ceremonial knives. There will be symbolism at the scene, and with Norse pagan rituals, the symbolism will likely involve runes arranging natural objects in a specific way, and perhaps combining the runes with blood, i.e., blooding the runes. You don't get bullet wounds with ritual murders. Rather, there's usually throat slitting, blood loss, perhaps torture. You'd expect the sacrifice to be displayed or arranged at the scene in a manner that is significant to the group. And finally, you'd expect to see an atypical or symbolic blood pattern at a ritual killing. According to Perlmutter, the scene included all of these elements. The murders occurred outdoors in a clearing near a large creek. The murders coincided with the Nordic holiday Valisblot, which honors Odin's son. The girls' throats were cut with the knife and they bled extensively. Perlmutter found sticks to be obvious symbolism and difficult to explain in any other way. In her opinion, the stick arrangement on Abbey mirrored the Norse rune Gebo, and the stick formation on Liberty looked like a Nordic bind rune. Perlmutter also explained that the bodies were arranged in a manner consistent with a pagan ritual. An upside down hanging body is an important element of Norse paganism because Odin hung from a tree for 9 days before discovering runes, and Odin's leg is often displayed with one leg bent behind the other. Alternatively, it could also be tarot symbolism, in my opinion. Here, the blood patterns on the girls' faces suggested a person lifted their bodies and articulated their torsos and necks above their chins. Abby's leg was bent behind the other, mirroring the classic image of Odin, and the blood pattern on the tree appeared to look like a Norse pagan Fehu rune. Perlmutter had the knowledge, skill, and expertise to offer this testimony. Expert testimony should be admitted if the expert is qualified by skill, knowledge, experience, or training or education, and the testimony will help the trier of fact understand the evidence or determine a fact and issue. Here, Perlmutter is an expert in ritualistic killings and a recognized federal subject matter expert on atypical homicide and ritualistic crime investigation. She is the author of Ritualistic Crime Scene Investigation, a field guide for law enforcement officers investigating ritually motivated crimes. She teaches about ideological and ritualistic killings, and she is familiar with the practice of Norse paganism or Odinism. She was qualified to offer testimony. Perlmutter's testimony was not conjecture. There was always a discussion among law enforcement that this evidence may be a ritual murder and that the sticks were Nordic runes. The BAU declined to exclude pagan ritual as a plausible explanation for the murder scene. A consulting professor found it to be quite plausible the sticks markings constitute an instruction inspired by Norse runes. And an undercover LE officer familiar with runes also found pagan symbolism at the scene. Perlmutter's testimony would be helpful to the jury. Although motive is not an element of murder, juries want an explanation for the crime. And when motive is unclear or inconsistent with the defendant's guilt, juries are more likely to acquit. And that's the key phrase there. Similarly, when a murder scene is complex or unusual, it is important the jury receive an explanation. Here, the murder scene was complex and unusual, and the jury would naturally want an explanation. The sticks immediately stand out to any rational person as unusual and warranting an explanation. Perlmutter's testimony provides an answer, explains the scene, and offers a motive. Her testimony would be helpful to the jury. Excluding Perlmutter violated the Constitution. A defendant is entitled to answer the prosecution's case with his version of the facts, so the jury may decide where the truth lies. A judge cannot infringe upon the right through arbitrary, disproportionate, mechanistic application of the rules of evidence. Accordingly, if the state offers an inculpatory explanation for the evidence, trial courts cannot use the rules of evidence to prohibit the defendant from offering an exculpatory explanation. By excluding Perlmutter's testimony, the trial court allowed the state to offer an inculpatory explanation for the murder scene while denying Allen his constitutional right to offer an exculpatory explanation. This is arbitrarily and disproportionately denied, or this arbitrarily and disproportionately denied Allen his constitutional right to present any defense. The error was also not harmless. The state told the jury repeatedly this case was about a brutal murder and explained the evidence in a manner that incriminated Rick Allen. The jury received a one-sided explanation for the crime without Allen being able to counter it. This error affected Allen's substantial rights and altered the jury's decision. This is called the fixing of the trial against Richard Allen. Now, in my opinion, there's something missing here. We know the crime scene was staged. Who's to say that it was not staged to look like a ritualistic crime? And that is my bombshell. Okay, that is my bombshell. And maybe someday you'll all catch up.
Oh my God!
I believe the defense made an egregious error in adhering to this Odin ritual defense, because that overlooks multiple confessions of POIs, and that overlooks the confessions that this scene was staged to look like it was something that it wasn't. And it's time for the public to catch up, and it's time for Andy Baldwin and the defense team to catch up. There's no option here other than the truth. And until a defense is mounted that uses the truth to exculpate Richard Allen's going to be railroaded. The trial court denied Allen his right to show the state's investigation was incomplete, overlooked plausible leads, and mishandled evidence related to third-party guilt. Let's talk about that. The trial court, Judge Gull, denied Allen his right to show the state's investigation was incomplete. It was a bonk investigation. The state overlooked possible or plausible leads, and the state mishandled evidence related to third-party guilt. So you get that? In other words, this is the judge covering for the state. The judge covered for the bonked, botched, incompetent law enforcement investigation. The trial court, Judge Gull, prohibited Allen from presenting any evidence regarding the manner, quality, and thoroughness of the investigation into this murder. A defendant is entitled to have his case proved beyond a reasonable doubt. And the accused can create doubt by showing that the investigation was bonk, it was incomplete, it overlooked plausible leads, or that law enforcement mishandled evidence relating to third parties' guilt. And we know all of this is true in the Delphi murders. I mean, this is the foundation of the quote unquote investigation. This is the foundation right here. A defendant is entitled to present this. Here, in this case, Richard Allen presented evidence that the state performed an incomplete bonk investigation, mishandled and destroyed evidence, and I mean volumes of evidence, overlooked plausible third-party leads. And here it says connected to pagan rituals, but no, it also connected to the Dropbox. Let's be real. After examining the scene, several officers believed it was too complex for just one person. Well, that's a matter of fact. And the Carroll County Sheriff immediately thought the sticks related to pagan rituals. The day the girls went missing, law enforcement learned that Abigail was having a relationship with Logan Holder, the son of Brad Holder. That week, law enforcement interviewed Holder and his friend, Patrick Westfall. Holder reported to being involved in a pagan tribe, spending every weekend in Delphi, engaging in rituals with Westfall and 5 or 6 others, including women. These rituals involved animal sacrifice, human bloodletting. He told police he owned a .40 caliber gun, but officers did not examine or even collect the weapon, nor did they search his phone. Holder told police he was at work at Liberty Landfill when the girls went missing. Wow, what a name, Liberty. Law enforcement recorded over Holder's interview, permanently deleting it conveniently. In his interview, Westfall told law enforcement he knew the woods where the girls were murdered very well. He reported knowing the girls but denied ever meeting them, which was also untrue. He also reported being a religious leader for local pagans. And he wore a necklace to the interview representing his efforts to pledge the Vinlanders. Law enforcement neglected to record Westfall's interview, and when asked for an alibi, he claimed he was at home with his son. In the 5.5 years between Westfall's interview and Allen's arrest, law enforcement took no further action. Total bungled investigation, botched. After Holder's interview, and that's being kind, okay, that's being optimistic, because it's also possible it's just a straight up cover up from the ground up. After Holder's interview, tipsters repeatedly called and reported him as a person of interest, claiming he posted pictures of half dead women and symbols out of tree branches. On April 13, 2017, officers visited the landfill to investigate, and it spoke with an employee, Susan Case, who provided a printout showing Holder swiped out of work. At 2:45 p.m., which was 30 minutes after the Bridge Guy video, Case invited the officers to review the video and confirm the printout's accuracy, but they declined, nor did they interview other employees. Unified Command marked Holder as a cleared suspect. Wait, I thought we didn't clear anyone. I thought that was Lee's line. Oh, no one's been cleared. No one's been cleared. Yeah, we don't mark cleared. We mark covered. In April 12, 2017, shortly before taking medical leave, Trooper Winters received a call from a tipster, Ryan Boucher, who shared pictures from Holder's social media. Winters found a concerning similarity between the murders and pictures posted on Holder's social media. Those pictures just depicted young girls believed to be deceased with sticks placed over their bodies. Winters also noted similarity between stick formations on Abigail and the bind rune Holder tattooed or drew in his hand. That's a bind rune on my hand. Basically, I took a Gebo rune and an Isa rune and I made a bind rune. Holder's social media also featured him holding guns and homemade knives. Winters immediately recommended to his superiors that law enforcement investigate Holder further, which they declined to do, claiming his alibi was cleared by the FBI. Holder displayed a painting made of Odin hanging upside down with his right leg tucked behind his left. Holder's painting also featured a Fehu rune in red. In September 2023, state charged Allen at Allen's residence. Law enforcement re-examined Holder. At Allen's insistence, law enforcement re-examined Holder. Holder's story about Abigail Williams began to change. Back in 2017, he told law enforcement he never actually met Abigail. But in August 2023, he told law enforcement he met Abigail once. And during a deposition in 2024, he said he met Abigail twice. At least one of those encounters occurred shortly before her murder at Westfall's home. On April 4, 2024, Allen's counsel deposed Case, the Liberty Landfill HR officer. and found that Holder did not have exclusive control of his employee badge on the day the girls went missing. What? Did y'all know that? On April 4th, 2024, Allen's counsel deposed Case, the Liberty Landfill HR officer, and found that Holder did not have exclusive control of his employee badge on the day the girls went missing. You know, the ones that's used to clock in, clock out of work. Also, Allen uncovered evidence that impeached the course of the investigation even further. Holder told his wife he had a fight with Westfall because Westfall wanted to up from animal slaughter to a different type of sacrifice. Well, that has to be human. Holder then told her that Westfall killed Abigail Williams with others, and she needed to keep her mouth shut about it. Again, Holder then told her that Westfall killed Abigail Williams with others. You need to keep your mouth shut about it. The evidence shows a shoddy, incomplete, mishandled, bungled, bitched, botched, ditched, sloppy, incompetent, corrupt investigation into this murder. Raises reasonable doubt that Holder and Westfall were responsible for the murders, and Allen was entitled to present this evidence to a jury, and the judge committed reversible error by excluding it. The error violated the Constitution and affected the jury's decisions. Again, this is the conspiracy to fix the trial and the jury of Richard Allen. The Constitution entitles a defendant to attack not only the probative value of crucial physical evidence and the circumstances in which it was found, but the thoroughness and even the good faith of the investigation as well. Here, the omitted evidence created a reasonable doubt, and raised reasons or questions of the utmost importance about the manner, quality, and thoroughness of the botched, bungled investigation that led to Allen's arrest 5.5 years after the murders. Had the jury heard all this, a different result was likely and almost absolutely certain. And that's the bottom line here. Now, factually, could it be that it's not the religion, but the persons at the bottom of this? Yes. For instance, let's say you find a crime scene. And at this particular crime scene, there's a cross, a Christian cross, left at the crime scene. Does it mean that Christians killed the kids? Hey, let's speculate. Let's say instead of runes on the bodies or bind runes or attempts at bind runes on the bodies, what if this crime would have happened on an Easter Sunday? What if there would have been a Christian cross left on one of the bodies? What if one of the victims would have had praying hands? Does this mean Christians absolutely certainly killed the bodies? Killed the girls and left the bodies? Or could it have been that a couple friends of Ron Logan, who are all hyped up and in the midst of a bad situation, maybe trying to harm those kids, maybe they killed these girls and someone decides, hey, let's put some crosses on them? Because it's very possible that these guys who also happen to be Odinists did have involvement in these murders, like those mentioned in the Frank's memo. Let's say Elvis Fields. Let's say Josh Crispin. Let's say Brad Holder, Patrick Westfall, and anyone else you want to pull out of that Frank's memo. What if the facts of their confessions and their ties and their conflicting statements, what if those facts don't change? But what if the motive or the root of this incident does change? Okay, because you see, that's what I think this is. You don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. If the bathwater is an Odin ritual, is what is the reason for these murders, and these POIs or these individuals tied into it or the baby, you don't have to throw out Elvis Fields' confessions to his sisters just because this might not have been what the defense claimed it was. So I need you all to think about that. You can still have the same facts in a different context. Like I said, it's my opinion at this time. I think we can take this back to Robert Ives, who, like a spineless lizard, like a worm, backed out of this case. He said the bodies had been moved and staged. Check. It's a lot to think about. Anyhow, this was Delphi, Obstruction of Justice and the Conspiracy to Fix the Trial of Richard Allen, Part 1. Okay, we're going to have Part 2 and 3. Part 2 and 3. We're going to go through the other major points of this appellate filing. And just to refresh all of your memory, let's look at them again so that you can see where we're headed. Okay, this was Part 3 here. Whether Judge Gold, the trial court, denied Allen his right to a fair trial, to present a complete defense, to explain the scene, and impeach the investigation. Friday, we're going to cover Part 2, whether statements Allen made, quote unquote, confessions, while gravely disabled during unprecedented pretrial solitary confinement, were involuntary, the product of unconstitutional detention, and therefore inadmissible. And then we'll follow that up with Part 3, whether the search of Allen's home was unconstitutional and the resulting evidence inadmissible because law enforcement omitted or altered key facts in the warrant application. I'm going to call that fruit of the poisonous tree. So I want to thank everyone for being here, and I want to thank you for supporting the channel. If you're on the replay, do me a solid. Please, please, please do. Leave comments down below because I don't do this for nothing. I want to know what you think too. And if you missed the live, it's no bad on your part because you can still leave comments down below and you can still send support to the channel. I appreciate you when you do. ACB says, Ives says the bodies had been moved and then staged, 2 separate actions to conceal the crime, to make it look like it was something it wasn't. And I think everyone needs to wrap their minds around that, including the defense attorneys, because they fucked up big time. All right. I want to thank I want to thank Jotan Yeager, Carla Ann, Untamable, Skip Jensen, Carla Ann. Oh, I said Carla Ann. Quadaxo Mimi, Swade Smith, Heavy Metal Rehab. All right. Oh, hey, Christina, True Grit Crime. Who else has been chatting it? Who is that? Lawyer's Daughter. Deb 731. Dieter. What's up, Dieter? Daisy asks. Matt Payton. Putting together the pieces. Nicole Nicole Watt. Anyone I missed, just drop your name below. I'm not going back that far, but I see everyone. I want to thank the donors today. Ginger Spice, Deb731, Dennis McKean. Thank you very much, Dennis. Dieter, David Rogers, Nicole Watt, Ninja Warrior Assassin, ACV, Swade Smith, and Becky B33. Thank you all for your comments, for the live chat, and supporting the channel with the super chats. And also check out my Cash App and buy me a coffee. I could use your support. Love your support. Thank you very much. Also want to say hello to Dark Arts by Adrian is in here. Noe is in here. What's up? What's up, Noe there at Venue 03? Good to see you. Good to see all of you guys. Matt Payton, Skip Jansen, Carla Ann. I see you guys chiming in. Tammy, hey Tammy, welcome to the replay. Enjoy the replay, Tammy. Untamable, thank you very much for the 100%. I feel the same. All right, so I'm so glad to see everyone. Thank you, Christina says, great show, Prof. Thank you. Spineless jellyfish, yeah, something like that. Robert Ives. What is he afraid of? Lisa Gweno, thank you. Nancy Drew 101, thank you. I see you guys. Thanks so much for coming. Hey, God bless. God bless. With that being said, hey, it's a new day. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, there we go. Thank you very much. It's a new day. And everyone else, I appreciate your comments at the last moment. I love seeing everyone dip in and let me know you were here. Sorry I didn't watch the chat tonight. There was so much reading. Okay, I'm burned out on the reading. That was a lot of reading, but I wanted to get through all of that for you. Again, we're going to talk about point number 2 on Friday. So I'll see you all Friday for sure. And who knows, I might do something tomorrow. I don't know. But by the way, also please do me a solid. Check out the community page. If you're not keeping up with my community pages and the community posts, you're missing a lot. What's up, lawyer's daughter? Thank you. Check out the community page on both channels. I have the small channel, the large channel, the Prof True Crime and the Prof. So check out both my channels. I got some interesting community pages, and piece of advice for all you deep divers. They go way back. You might want to go way down those community pages and look quite far back. Oh, and also, since I'm promoting myself, let me say this. I have created a new playlist. If you will go, let's see if I can do this. Well, I'll show it. How about that? I'll show it. Let me show you. I've created a new playlist called The Club of Lafayette, Delphi. Okay, do you see it? Is it showing? Right here. The Club of Lafayette, Delphi. I don't know. It's not focused. Okay. The Club of Lafayette, Delphi. It's my first on the playlist. The Club of Lafayette, Delphi. It's the first playlist on my channel. Go check that out, okay? Jalen Rain. I know she can ramble a bit. She takes a while to get the story out. But I would highly recommend, if you guys want to do some homework, some preparation for the next month ahead, go and watch my playlist entitled The Club of Lafayette, Delphi. Check. All right, see you guys later. Appreciate it very much. See you later.
gross and icky, and I feel like it tells us more about them people that are trying to degrade, they're always trying to degrade someone. It's kind of gross and icky, and I feel like it tells us more about them than the people that are trying to degrade. They're always trying to degrade someone.
Bruh.
Only need good vibes, good vibes, good vibes, good vibes. Only need good vibes, good vibes, good vibes, good vibes. Only need good vibes. Can't lie. Good vibes, good vibes, good vibes, good vibes. Been waiting so patient, I'm going places, can't fake it. My heart is so cold, my energy is contagious. All the pain, I can't take it. I'm staying grounded and graceful, cause I know everything that I've been through only made me count my blessings daily. Yeah, they've been acting shady, but I don't take it personal. The memories fading, I'm enjoying the moment. I've been smelling the roses, taking time to reflect, stepping back, the truth unfolding, unfolding. Got nothing to prove, cause I'm about to blow. I've been in the booth, speaking to my soul. You know that I'm true, either way it go, either way it goes. I cannot turn cold, staying on the low. I've been protecting my soul. If your intentions are not pure, I can't let you get too close, cause I'm vibrating high. Ain't got time for your ego, these niggas quit to turn their back. Acting like the amigos, they never cared in the shows. Wasn't with you at your lows, assuming that you gonna fold. But baby, I've been growing ever since I let you go, and I've been doing better, and I know that hurts to know. Hurts to know. Only good vibes around me, and that's for sure. Only good vibes, good vibes, good vibes, good vibes. Only need good vibes, good vibes, good vibes, good vibes. Only need good vibes. Can't lie. Only need good vibes, good vibes, good vibes, good vibes. You see me searching for my inner peace. I've been learning more about myself and my purpose. Truth always come to the surface.
you fucking hoe.